Before I start the satin stitch, I'm going to put a stabiliser on the back. Satin stitch can pull the fabric out of shape a little bit, so a stabiliser helps to hold it and stop it puckering. This one I'm using is called Sulky Totally Stable. Sometimes people use stitch and tear or freezer paper, but I like this because I don't find it too heavy. Just cut a piece, put it, this is an iron-on one, so the shiny side down on the top of the fabric. And iron it. That will just support the fabric and keep the satin stitch nice. So I've threaded my machine up with a machine embroidery thread, a rayon one on the top. Those are nice for applique. They're no use for ordinary piecing, they're not strong enough. Before you start on your proper piece, test it out on a scrap that's been made from some of your leftover pieces of bondaweb. You need to make sure you set your stitch length and width to something that's going to work. I know that a stitch width of about 2.5mm on my machine and a stitch length of about 0.6 gives me a good stitch for what I want today. And I'm also using an applique foot which is transparent. On the Bernina it's number 23. It's got a wide hole in it so that the machine can zigzag, and I've set my machine to the zigzag stitch. Now what I want to be able to do is to zigzag so that the machine gives a good stitch. Where I've got it at the moment is no good because it's not going over the edge of the fabric. So I need to move it a little bit so that when the needle goes in on the right hand side of the stitch, it just goes off the edge. If I can keep it like this, that gives me a really nice finish. I need to check the tension though before I look at it properly and start. That looks about right. On the front I can only see my shiny thread, and on the back it's just pulling between. I'm just doing another test piece, but I've changed this time to a white thread underneath so it'll be easier to check. Oh dear, you can see it's pulling the white thread up from underneath, so that means I need to adjust my tension. If I make the top thread looser, that hopefully will work. Can you see the difference? And on the bottom you need to make sure that your tension, if possible, is a little tighter than normal. On my Bernina I've got a little arm with a hole in, and that simply achieves, if you put that through, that instantly adjusts the tension. Because what you want is to make sure that the threads are not visible on the top, they're pulled underneath to the bottom a little bit. The alternative is to tighten the bottom a little bit. You do have to be quite careful for this. I'm just going to tighten that little screw a very small amount to see if that improves it. And a final tension test. That's really good. I can't see any white on the front at all from the bottom thread. And on the back, there's the white of the bobbin thread, and I can just see little tiny dots of the red on both sides. That means that the white bobbin thread won't show at all on the top, and it'll be nicely pulled under. So now I'm ready to start my applique on my shape of a letter R. I'm going to start on the easy bit, which is the straight bit, and I'm going to go up this side. So I'm going to start near this corner. To fasten on, I need to go to a straight stitch, positioned so that the needle is just on the right hand side of the red fabric, just like that. And I've set my stitch length to a very short length so that I can start with 4 or 5 very tiny stitches. Now I change back to my zigzag stitch on the same settings I had before. And I'm stitching along so that the needle goes on the right hand side, just off the edge of the red fabric. For this outside corner, I stop with the needle on the right hand side, right on the outside corner like that. Then I lift it up, turn the fabric round, put the presser foot back down, and I can stitch again. On this gentle curve, I can just move a little bit if I want to. But as I approach the tighter curve, I need to make sure that I'm not letting it tangle up underneath, and I'm lifting the foot up and moving every now and again. I'm always stopping on the outside because I'm on an outside curve. I've actually got a knee lift fitted on my machine, so in fact I don't need to touch it. When I move my knee sideways, I can turn that as the foot has lifted up with my knee. That's much quicker and easier. And it means I can keep just doing a few stitches, lift, turn, down, stitch. Stop on the outside, lift, turn, down, stitch again. Lift, turn, down, stitch. On this tight curve, I need to stop every 2 or 3 stitches and go slowly. Now you can see I'm approaching an inside corner here, and I've got to be careful that I don't leave an ugly stitch. So what I'm in fact going to do is stitch well beyond the corner and then turn round and go over the top of my stitching again. I'm stopping in the left hand side, lift and turn, and what I'm looking for is to be able to come over to the right and stitch on this side. I've not quite gone far enough. And back again, just 1 or 2 more stitches, turn around again. Now when I stitch, it's lined up right to be able to stitch off the edge of this fresh part. Now I'm at this outside corner, so again I lift, turn and stitch on top of where I've just been. Stop right on the outside corner, lift, turn. This curve that I'm doing is an inside curve. So this time I need to stop on the left hand side. It always means that I'm stitching tighter on top of a piece, not leaving it wide open. There are diagrams in the instructions that explain this well. Again, I'm coming to an inside corner, so I need to stitch beyond the corner and turn, and now you can see again I'm lined up, ready to stitch along this side nicely. Outside corner, so I stop on the right and turn. Outside corner, stop on the right corner, turn, and then I need to stitch back to where I started. Stop on the outside, change back to my tiny straight stitch and do a few little tiny stitches just to fasten off. Now I've completed all the way around the outside, I need to go around the inside of the top of the R. Lift your needle up and just come across. Most people find it easier to do as I started and stitch over the right hand side of the red. So although I could go over the left, my eye's tuned into doing it the other way round. So in fact I'm going to start off here, which means I'll be going again off the right hand side to line up so that I'm going to do my little straight stitch right on the edge again to start. A few of those stitches back to the zigzag, it's an inner curve, so I'm stopping on the left each time. It's quite tight, so I'm doing lots of changes. Every few stitches. You can see how useful this knee lift is, because it gives me both hands to control the position. It's an inside corner, so I go beyond, stop on the left and turn and stitch again. You'll notice, by the way, that I chose a red thread to match my fabric. You could of course use a different contrasting thread, but particularly if you're new to this, it's a bit more forgiving to use a thread that matches, and then it doesn't show up any mistakes. There we are, I'm back at the beginning, back to my straight stitch, a few tiny stitches at the edge, cut my threads, and there, my R is just there, ready for me to move on to the next stage.